Welcome to Polymuse.
That's exactly dead on right. That is exactly where you are. That's exactly what you want to hear when you're tuning in for the experience. The voice you're hearing right now is the voice of Ben.
And I am Michael.
He's the other voice on the cast, on the muse. The many muses we share, the many muses we don't share. We'll cover them all from here to there.
And today, you're being mesmerized as we're tackling System of a Down's fourth studio album, Mezmerize. Yeah.
Oh, that's how some people pronounce it.
Some people.
I pronounce it differently, but it's a good album. Do you like this album? Just straight up and down, what do you remember the original Mezmerize?
I remember feeling like it took a long time for some new System of a Down music. This came out May 17th of 2005.
Okay.
The previous album, of course, Steal This Album, came out in 2002. And it just seemed like a long layoff, about 3 years there. And of course, the announcement came out that there would be, multiple projects coming out from System of a Down here.
And we had songs there in the middle, but Steal This Album was not exactly an album as far as the fans were concerned. As far as we were concerned, waiting for new stuff.
Right.
It was kind of a long wait between. Toxicity was kind of classic and out, like instant classic, like when we kind of already started listening to it. And then there was, the weird LimeWire years. But then the anticipation, I do remember being excited when they started doing the singles and the promotion and doing this new wave of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, so BYOB came out March 28th, so just a few months before the album release with the music video, and that was the first glimpse into this new System of a Down world that we would be entering, if you remember that.
I wonder if we were still getting songs like track by track at this time. Probably for the most part. This was still that era where people would just download just the hit or whatever, or, rip the CD and just delete half the songs. So I wonder if, because I kind of remember hearing these piecemeal again for whatever reason. I do kind of remember hearing a few of them at a time and not really ever having the full exact album and kind of just having a few tracks here or there that people had purchased individually or downloaded individually.
So I remember seeing the BYOB music video on Yahoo, I believe, or something like that, because YouTube actually officially launched at the end of 2005. It was still in beta mode in 2005. Just to put that in perspective, if you're someone that's on YouTube like every day looking up stuff like me, it wasn't officially launched until after this album came out.
And there were no ads.
Yeah.
At all.
Right. So to catch music videos and stuff like this, besides watching them on MTV and things like that, you would actually go to like MySpace or Yahoo and things like that. So that's, I think, where I first remember watching the music video and being like, oh, there's a new official song, a new official album. We've got a visual for it. Like, it's really coming. Mezmerize. And just being excited for some new good music.
I remember seeing it on, I think it was Fuse TV, most likely. I do remember seeing the video on TV for the first time, and it was that era where this stuff was still on TV. It was on these weird sites where you could stream videos and promotional videos and stuff. But it's absurd how YouTube is now a very dominant force in music, and this happening like at the exact same time. That might have been one of the last wave of the pre-YouTube promotional cycles,
right?
And the fact that there's two of them and that we knew there was more music coming, and that must be how they decided to kind of combat that fact of, where people are getting leaks and bootlegs and they're getting a track at a time instead of an album. Just the fact of them being like, well, there's two halves and there's more coming later, and just extending it out, just instead of just dropping a whole thing at once, kind of giving you that full couple years to really digest all the songs and hear all the different, as far as, the styles, they've did a lot of different styles on here again, as far as it's all in the set of System of a Down, but it really is kind of there where they try some stuff.
Try some new stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It was recorded, this Mesmerize and Hypnotize, from roughly June to November of 2004. So that's not even 6-month period there where they put both albums together. So kind of a quick turnaround time for the release date, all things considered, to get everything mixed and mastered there. It did end up peaking number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 chart. Of course, they had their respect now. They were obviously a big name from Toxicity. Yeah, was widely reviewed as an excellent album. 4 out of 5 stars, or 4.5 across all the major publications, or A ratings where they were given grades, and 8 out of 10s all across the board. So widely viewed as a very, very successful album across the board. Debuted at number 1 in at least 12 countries.
Talk about quitting while you're ahead. This type of album would make, I can't believe the record label didn't force them to make more after something like that. Like their 4th album in, they're hitting so much, and then they do the wrap up with Hypnotize, and then they're just done. They're just quitting while they're at the top of the game. Number 1, that's pretty amazing for this type of music and this type of project. BYOB was amazing. And it's lightning in a bottle, but getting the number 1 spot out of all genres and all types of audience is pretty insane.
Yeah, I think that's pretty wild to get up there at being what they are.
Yeah.
It's System of a Down, kind of a metalish band. We get some more of the kind of polka stuff in here. The album as a whole tracks in at less than 40 minutes. And we have some more of the, one of the songs is Violent Pornography. That's just not something you expect to go mainstream and sell a lot of albums per se.
Well, but their point with that song is that, the stuff that is mainstream is just as bad and just as, we'll get to it, but the joke of what is mainstream now, it's strange because there is stuff that is this gruesome, or because there's no sexual content really for the most part. There are some here and there, but it's not the same as, we have music artists that are strippers and that are whatever.
Yes.
So I think a lot of that stuff is tongue in cheek, where they're like, "Oh, we're being goofy and saying bad words, but what are you really looking at?" Like so it's that inversion of the mainstream, basically. It's like there's stuff, and it's random too. There's stuff that would be appalling in the mainstream that would be, you can do an alternative, but vice versa, and it changes. It goes in cycles. What is considered offensive or what people can get away with on the big stage, but they always pointed the finger back and said, look what is glorified in this culture. Like, you think we're being strange, you think we're being whatever, but look at how insane some of the mainstream stuff is.
Exactly. Very impressive. Anything else?
Darren starts singing a lot on this project, this era. That's why I remember it coming out more track by track, or just downloading a few at a time, because we started noticing that like every single song you have Darren singing on there just as much as Serge. I think there's some he sings by himself. They both sing great. I like it when bands have more than one lead singer. I like it when you have those 2 different voices, but Darren sings way too much. Like, he shouldn't sing as much as he does. They have another great singer. He's a great singer too. They both are great singers. There's no reason there's just some where it's like, do they really both have to sing this one?
Right. Yeah.
It should be more of the secret weapon, more of or just have them all sing. Bring in more, make the bass player sing, make everybody sing. It just gets very, very Darren heavy. And we'll get to that even more on the Dictator solo album, where he just does it by himself. But this is the beginning of that. Apparently, he also played most of the bass parts on this album, except for the ones that Shavo wrote the riffs or co-wrote on the songs. I guess Darren, the songs he wrote without Shavo, he just kind of did the bass parts without him. So between double duty on guitar and bass and doing all the vocals, and definitely becomes the Darren show, which is not what we want. We've complimented them in the past on having 4 distinct personalities and they really don't tap into that enough, or never tapped into that completely, because even here where it is, Serge obviously he shouldn't be the lead all the time. He should be able to take the back seat or do backup vocals or whatever, but it's not in service of the whole band, really. It's in service of Darren just wants his voice dominant on every song, and there's no reason for it.
Yeah. Well, so this is where, if you remember in 2018, so fairly recently, much later after this album was released, that it came out when this pair of albums was being recorded, that there was some conflict between Serge and the rest of the group because of, creative disputes and creative input and that kind of thing, and some dispute over finances and that kind of deal. So you would hope that doesn't actually come through in the music like that. I'm not sure if that actually had anything to do with it, but that's what actually came out years afterwards, is that around this time when they were putting these tracks together, which would have been end of 2004, that they were having some internal band issues. So,
and they never recorded, well, they did, but they never made an album again after that. So that must be true. That must be the case, that it was unreconcilable creative differences, and that's too bad, because I bet you Darren's manager kicks him every day. He just wakes up and calls Darren and is like, all that stuff you're working on would sell 1,000 times more copies, millions of copies, if it was called System of a Down instead of Scars on Broadway. Now, he even changed the name of his band, because it used to be Scars on Broadway. Now it's like Darren Malakian with Scars on Broadway. Like, he couldn't even take the credit. That. Scars of Broadway is Darren Malakian, like that. But he no, I want double credit on my double solo album it's Darren and Scars on Broadway. It's like all him. So what a not nice situation, I guess.
No. They have it together enough to still tour from time to time. Again, we've mentioned it's usually on the west side of the United States, occasionally international dates. Unfortunately, nowhere near where we're at. We'd have to travel to see them, but at least they have that piece together. So that's something, I guess. Unfortunate that we haven't had a full project from them. Just a few loosies, as they're called now, I believe. A few singles here and there.
And we'll get to those.
Yeah.
But we'll do our Desert Island mixtape for Mezmerize on Polymuse. We take an artist and we get our Desert Island mixtape of their best songs, 14 best songs. Michael has quite a few S's left in the chamber compared to myself. I used up several. I think I only have 2 or 3 left to give. So we'll see how Mezmerize stacks up in the end. You'll have a few from Michael here going forward. This album's great. Overall sound quality, just the atmospherics that they're able to pull out of the guitars. It's not the same every time. It's like they're not retreading ground, even though they're set in their ways. They're set on certain styles of riff. It's all very System of a Down. Like, it's all their signature style, but they keep the guitars so unique and different on each track, and just keep them, just the tones of each song. Each one really does stand out and feel unique. They kind of all feel like singles, honestly. They're all so polished and so conceptual. Like, each one is just like so based around the concept of the song that they really feel like singles. Like, there's no real throwaways on Mezmerize or Hypnotize. Even ones you don't really like, you can kind of grasp the concept and the riff and the theme and the whole picture of the song kind of right off the bat.
I agree with that. This is the first project where I kind of felt like this feels like a full normal band project.
Yeah. Without goofy like darts and Qbert and weird songs that just go nowhere in the middle that you're going to forget about. And it's like, which one is which? Which one is Qbert? Which one is who? We still don't remember which riff goes with which song on Steal This Album, because they're not, the concept is just not refined enough on some of that. It's like the whole second half of the first 3 albums really
pretty much
is it all kind of runs together. It gets muddier. It gets, songs that could have been, it's like, did we really need 2 of these? Did we really retread? Yeah. This is not like that. Obviously, the fact that they're shorter, the fact that they split them in half. But even if you put it all out as one, it's just the crafting of the riffs, the tonal quality of the different guitar effects, the way they layer everything, the different vocals. Obviously, I mean, we want Darren in there, and it makes it more varied and more unique going forward.
You just see a little bit less Surge vocally.
A lot of power ballads on here. A lot of power ballads. Is this the Minutes to Midnight of the System catalog here with the?
Well, it certainly feels like a more adult project It's,
That's a good point.
years removed from Toxicity.
With the exception of like 2 very glaringly immature songs. Like,
sure.
There's at least, I mean, the cocaine makes me feel like I'm in this fish, and there's something on the other album too where it's blatantly finished, like, but
gotta keep
to your point, continue
the system elements still in there. But it just feels like taking a few years to get these albums together and to get them out. Again, Toxicity and their self-titled came out so close together once they hit it big there. And a number of those tracks, and even a few that made it onto Steal This Album, were tracks that they've had since, have been sitting on for 5, 6, 7 years, and they were just kind of polishing up. Again, Steal This Album was originally kind of scraps from Toxicity, so it's just this was the first time they had the ability to kind of see what worked and what didn't, and to continue to develop as musicians and to sit back and put these 2 projects together here. And so it just seemed like a little bit more... I mean, Toxicity's still the classic, the GOAT System of a Down album, but it just seemed like these 2 were a little bit more almost mature projects. But of course, as we know the history of the band, they immediately wanted to go different ways creatively and didn't make anything else after this. So, it's like a firework, shot high, shot hot, shot fast, and then fizzled out pretty quick there. But it just seems like there is a different sense with these 2 projects, I think.
We're going to hit you with that Soldier Side intro. See you on the other side, guys. This is the beginning of something beautiful. So that's the Soldier Side intro. We don't really rank intros and interludes typically on Polymuse, so we're not going to rank it. There's another Soldier Side coming up later. That is the full track. That's on Hypnotize.
Yep.
It is a cool song. We will give it an official grade. I kind of like the idea of having... I really like the idea of having different pieces of songs. It makes it way more like a piece of classical music, or like a piece of from like a Broadway show or something, where you've got your overture, you've got I love it when they do this on albums, where they have different riffs that come and go, an intro riff that might get weaved into a song later, that might get weaved into, the bridge of another song later.
Sure.
It makes the whole thing feel like its own piece of music with callbacks and themes and intros, the way they do a piece of classical music. And that's definitely on that caliber. They're onto that type of composing, basically, where they want to have a thematic, not crazy, not over the moon with it, not, there's still a metal band, garage band, mainstream. It's about the songs. It's not about some opus that they're doing, but just that little bit of thematic, setting it up. Here's a riff you're going to hear again later. It's not a waste of time to do that, is what I'm saying. People say, well, you play the same riff later.
Yeah.
But it sets the stage. It's not the same song again. It sets the stage. It's one really long song, and there's the chorus at the beginning and the chorus at the end, and they're both Soldier Side, and there's 2 albums in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like that. I like when they can play with the whole album as a piece of music like that.
Yeah. Welcome to the Soldier Side, where there's no one here but me. People all grow up to die. There's no one here but me. Sets the tone for the album, instrumentally soldiers, as well, as you stated. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of intros in general, but I think this was great to set the tone.
Yeah. And
as you're listening to the full album, again, something you're probably not putting back on a playlist. I suppose you could, because it does set the tone.
True.
So maybe it's the rare kind of intro, at least for me, that I would consider putting on a playlist. So positive aspect in that spectrum of things. So yeah, I like it.
Guys, get excited. Keep it rolling. Next episode of Polymuse, we're doing BYOB, the very famous track from this album. We're going to see if that makes both mixtapes or not. I have a hunch and a hankering this might be one that we enjoy. I know y'all are going to enjoy it. Look forward to that. See you next time.